First, I will make clear what Sri Aurobindo's connection with Upanishad is, and then we'll go to the Upanishad direct afterward. He has written about the Upanishad in the foundations of Indian culture. That is where you find a very fine chapter, one full chapter devoted to Upanishad in foundations of Indian culture. One on Veda, one on Upanishad and Gita and so on. And then he has written two full-fledged commentaries on Isha and Kena, and also a literal and very fine translation of, I think, Mandukya, is it not? Yes, Mandukya. After 48, 1946, between 1946 and 48. Other translations are there also. 8 Upanishads are translated by him, but they are early translations. Only this one of Mandukya is latest, 1946 after, you see. And there is an article in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad in early writing, which was published in the, Path Mandir Annual. Calcutta Path Mandir Annual has a big article on Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. That is one of the oldest Upanishads. That is his writing on the Upanishads. Now, Sri Aurobindo's approach to the Upanishad is not merely intellectual. That is the first thing you have to know. He used them and the Gita as treasures of spiritual experience. During his jail life, when he was under trial prisoner in 1908 and 9, between 8 and 9, he used this as text for practicing meditation and spiritual life, to attain spiritual life. To him, they are not repositories of intellectual philosophies to be used in metaphysical discussions, but they are inspired by intuitive expressions of seers continuing the same spiritual tradition that you find in the Veda. Veda and Upanishad are not antagonistic or different or separated from each other. It's a continuation of a tradition. He has given a detailed interpretation of the Isha and the Kena. An early translation of the 8 Upanishads also is revised, and Mandukya, later translation, is now available. In his interpretation of the Upanishad, he follows the same line that he follows in the interpretation of the Veda. That is to say, straightforward meaning of words and internal evidence of the text. That's all that he does. No commentaries or nothing else. Internal evidence and straightforward meaning of the words used by the text. This is what he says about the Upanishads. Here, means in the Upanishad, the intuitive mind and intimate psychological experience of Vedic seers passes into a supreme culmination in which the spirit, as is said in a phrase of Katha Upanishad, discloses its own very body. You see? Vivrunute tanum swam, that is the text in the Upanishad, you see? It reveals the very word of its self-expression in the Upanishad. The spirit reveals its very word of self-expression and discovers to the mind the vibration of rhythm, which, repeating themselves within in spiritual hearing, seem to bind up the soul and set it satisfied and complete on the height of self-knowledge. This is the comment on the Upanishad by Sri Aurobindo. I think it is in this, perhaps in the foundations. I'm not sure. The quotation is there in one of his writings. He further says that these works are not philosophical speculations. That is a great mistake which the Western people have committed. They have thought the Upanishads are philosophic. They are not philosophical speculations of the intellectual kind. A metaphysical analysis which labors to define notions, to select ideas, to discriminate those that are true, to logicize about truth, or else to support the mind in its intellectual preference by dialectical reasoning. Upanishad there's no dialectical reasoning in the Upanishad. And is content to put forward an exclusive solution. That is what the mind does. Mind does put an exclusive solution of existence in the light of this or that idea of reason and see all things from that viewpoint, in that focus and in that determining perspective. This is what the intellectual philosophy does. The Upanishad never argues. There is no argument in the Upanishad, no therefore and because. The Upanishads are, he writes, in Indian culture, foundations of Indian culture, are epic hymns of self-knowledge, world knowledge and God knowledge. They are expressions, epic expression of self-knowledge, world knowledge and God knowledge. You get a triple expression of the power of knowledge. Some writers have advanced the contention. Now, I take one or two grounds because I don't want to get into nonsensical intellectual, verbiage and you simply throw it out for nothing. Some writers have advanced the contention that Upanishads represent the knowledge aspect in opposition to the ceremonial or the karma aspect of the Veda. Veda is ceremonial and ritualism, and Upanishad is knowledge and self knowledge and what is Jnana Yoga. The Vedas to them stand for the rituals and Upanishads for knowledge. They even assert that the Upanishads are a revolt against the Vedic ritualism. This is some of the Western people's stand. Those opinions are not supported by proper study of the original hymns of the Veda or of the Upanishads. They are opinions because they want to support some idea which they have in their mind that if these people had rituals and these people wrote differently, then they must have revolted. There is no necessity to revolt. All lines of development in culture do not follow the Western line. You see, they forget that all development doesn't go along their expected and intellectually foreseen, ways. The core of the effort, both of the Upanishads and the Veda, both, what is the core? Is the attainment of spiritual state which can lift man out of his ignorance. There is no difference on this point between Veda and the Upanishad. Only the Upanishads speak of the experience in intuitive, inspired and revelatory speech, which is different from that of the Veda. The Vedic speech, Veda speaks in language of symbols and is written at a time when Sanskrit speech was plastic and the words retain the memory of their origins. It is at that time the hymns were written. The Upanishads being written 1000 or 1500 years afterwards, naturally the language underwent a change. And so their language is intuitive and inspired and revelatory and not symbolic. So much as the Vedic. They also have used symbols. Upanishads are not devoid of symbols, but they don't mainly depend upon the symbols for their expression. The Veda speaks the language of the symbols and is written at a time as the rishis speak out boldly about the visions they saw as concrete spiritual realities related to outer ceremonials of the sacrifice, which was their mystic symbol of man's communication with divine powers that surround him outwardly as well as inwardly. That was a symbol. Sacrifice was a symbol, around which they arranged their symbolic language of the hymns. The difference in the language of the Veda and of the Upanishad is marked, where we have in the Veda Agni, fire, Indra, another god, Aditi, a goddess of infinity, Surya, the god of illumination of knowledge. Well, in the Veda, in the later Upanishads, we have knowledge, Jnana, Satya, truth, Brahma, infinite, Prakriti, nature, Atma, soul. This is the difference in terminology. You can at once see. But still, as Sri Aurobindo has pointed out in his foreword to the hymns to the mystic fire, there are passages wherein the two types of expression meet. The Upanishad, like the Veda, aimed at attaining secret knowledge. They had also a path of mystic, realization by practice. For instance, in the Upanishad, where a question of rebirth is put to some great seer, the seer tells him, his name is Artabhaga. You see, Yajnavalkya tells him, come in private, I will tell you about it when we are alone. He's asking about rebirth, you see, and he says, yes, this is a question. Please come along, we will sit separately together, only two, and I will explain it to you. See, the idea was that knowledge was not to be given in public even to a small assembly. It was not that there were thousands of people, but even to a few dozens, it was not talked, all was not talked to everybody. The idea was to keep certain things, a secret in the sense of only by personal, contact. There is hardly an Upanishad which does not include some Vedic hymns in its body. Every Upanishad has some Vedic hymns incorporated into its very text. very often in a very different context from the Veda, and it shows the profound reverence in which the Vedas were held by the seers of the Upanishads. For example, when Satyakam Jabal says, in imparting spiritual instruction to the young disciple, there is a story which you must know, otherwise it will pass over your head. There was a rishi, Satyakam, who was an untouchable by caste, means he didn't know his caste. And he was taught by a rishi the knowledge of the supreme infinite reality. Well, when he attained the knowledge, he became a seer. Then he had his disciples, this untouchable disciple. Well, he was taking too much discipline, expecting too much of discipline from his disciples. So one of the disciples was fasting and doing all kinds of, austerities in order to get the knowledge. And this Satyakam was not giving him the knowledge. So his wife, who observed it, told him that you better give him the knowledge in time, otherwise the fire itself will give him the instruction. You see, this is a passage from the Upanishad I am quoting. So she says, Matva Agnah Paripravochan. You see, let not the fires instruct the seeker before you do. You see, so that they had that living faith. What I am pointing out is that they did not ridicule the Vedas at all. In fact, the Upanishad people continued the tradition of the Veda. Fire is a god worshipped by the seers of the Upanishad. In Kathopanishad, Nachiketa fire is mentioned as a deity that can help the aspirant to realize the higher consciousness. The fire worship was there even in the Upanishad. Kathopanishad speaks of Nachiketa fire, a fire which is known by the name of Nachiketas. The Upanishad accepted the Vedic symbols in their psychological significances. For instance, Dhenu, which means the fostering cow, the cow that gives milk, you see, particularly Dhenu, the cow that fosters, is spoken of as Vacham Dhenu Upasita. The fostering cow, the speech must be worshipped, says the Upanishad. You see, the cow is not that but speech. Symbol of the fostering cow is the speech. It's not the cow, but the speech is the fostering cow. Tasya Chatvarastana, she has 4 udders. Speech has 4 udders. So you see, the symbolism of the way the Dhenu, the fostering cow, is taken up by the Upanishad in the same symbolic sense and utilized. This is Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. So this has clear reference to 164th Sukta of the first mandal of the Rig Veda. You see? That the sacrifice means yagna was symbolic to the seers of the Upanishad as it was to the later writers right up to the Gita times is clear from the text like Aditya eva samit. This is Brihadaranyaka, you see. It says Samvatsara eva samit. The sun is the wood to be offered into the sacrifice. You must now know something about sacrifice. Sacrifice is a altar is prepared and fire is lighted. In that fire you put samit is a piece of holy wood, particular kind of tree from which you have to cut the wood and put it in the fire. That is called samit, the holy offering of wood in the sacred fire. Now the Rishi says in the Upanishad, sun is the wood. Literal translation is, sun is the wood to be offered in this fire. And Samvatsareva Samits. Then after another verse he says that the ear is the wood to be offered. Time sense, you see. The sense of time is to be offered in the fire of aspiration, fire of divine will. The sun is the offering holy wood for the sacrifice, and so also ear is the offering holy wood. Asava Adityo Deva Madhuhu. Another verse says in Chandogya it is, the sun, who is the son of Mother Infinity. Aditi is the infinity mother, or mother called infinity. Aditi means, well, the infinity mother. It is literal translation is like that, you see. The infinitive is creatrix, yes. And it says the sun, who is the son of Aditi, son of the infinite mother, is the honey of the gods. This sun is the honey of the gods. It is the expression of the delight, sweetness of divine consciousness. You see? Because sun makes the world, is it not? Sun makes the universe. So sun is the honey of the gods. Sun, who is the child of infinity, is the honey of the gods. You see, the language is so bizarre that modern mind takes quite a time to get at it. Yes, but that is what Upanishads are, you see. Here you will see that the sun and the honey both are symbols. Honey is sweetness and sun is light, illumination of knowledge. Knowledge is the expression of sweetness, you see, for the gods. To the gods, the sun represents sweetness of the divine, delight of the divine. You see, knowledge is not devoid of delight. The opening verse of Brihadaranyaka Upanishad shows not only that sacrifice was symbolic, but the whole universe is symbolized as a horse sacrifice, the sacrificial horse, Ashwamedha. The whole universe is a horse, you see. And Ashwamedha, this is the Ashwamedha in which the sea is related to this horse, the oceans are related to the horse and to the dawn. The goddess Dawn is the head of this horse. When dawn comes, it is the head of this horse, universal horse of sacrifice. Ushavai asya medyasya shiraha. That is the Brihadaranyaka beginning. Thus, the symbolism of the Veda is woven in these ancient Upanishads. Long ago, I collected a list of Vedic words used in the Upanishad almost in the same sense myself. I don't think I have published it yet. You see, for instance, one or two words. Vama means delight, which means delight in the Upanishad and delight in the Veda also. That sacrifice is symbolic is hardly admits of any doubt in face of the Upanishadic text, which also say like this, Purusho vavayagyaha. That is Chandogya. It says, this Purusha, the subjective consciousness is the sacrifice. The Purusha is the sacrifice. He wouldn't be there but for the act of, the original sacrifice which took place. The Purusha is indeed the sacrifice which is followed by text dividing man's life into three parts. Then he says, how do you say that is sacrifice? You say, no, first 24 years is devoted to Gayatri rhythm. The next 24 hours is devoted to Trishtip. The next 48 years of life are devoted to, the third rhythm. Life was divided into rhythms, Vedic rhythms, you see. And man was a sacrifice. And that sacrifice was to be done in 3 seasons, 3 rhythms. Aditya, which generally is identified with the sun by people, but it is said to be Brahman, Aditya Brahma. It is infinite. That is Chandogya. If we examine some of the passages in which the Upanishads employ the Vedic words, in the same sense, we find that the symbolic sense was accepted by the Vedic seers. The name of that is that delight. This is almost like Veda in the constitutional language. As delight, one should seek and follow it. That is from the Upanishad. It is almost Vedic language. You see, because they accepted the Vedic symbol and used the same language to express their own experience of it. The Upanishad employing its own terminology suddenly brings in a Vedic term in the context. For instance, in the Katha Upanishad 139, it says that the man who uses mind for the reins and knowledge for the driver of the horses of his, the senses are the horses. Mind is the rein. And the man who uses mind as a rein, knowledge for the driver, he reaches the end of his road. The end of the road is the highest seat of Vishnu, the Supreme Consciousness. He reaches the highest seat of the Supreme Consciousness. This is related to Rigveda, first Mandal 22, 20th Sukta. And this belongs to Taittiriya Upanishad. Of the Katha is the same as the Rigvedic text. this text that follows. It refers to the swan. The swan is a symbol of human soul. Swan is a human soul. And the Upanishad, Katha Upanishad, employs not only swan as the symbol, but uses almost the language of Rigveda. The language which corresponds to the fourth mandal, 40th sukta, and fifth hymn of the Rigveda. It is just that. It says, the translation, Lo, the swan whose dwelling is in purity, the swan whose dwelling is in purity, he is Vasu in the interregions. Vasu is wealth. The sacrificer on the altar, this swan, human soul, he is the sacrificer at the altar. The swan is the guest in the vessel of the drinking. He is the guest in the vessel of the drinking. Drinking is of the wine of delight. The human body is a vessel, and the swan is a guest who is there to, well, participate or partake of the drinking from the vessel. Yes. He is guest in the vessel of the drinking. He is a man. He is a great one. And his home is in the law of the truth. This swan's home is in the law of the truth. His dwelling is in the firmament, not here. He is vast and infinite and cosmic. He is all that is born of the waters. He is all that is born of the earth, the swan. He is all that is born of the waters. He is all that is born of the earth. All that is born on the mountains. He is the truth. He is the vast. Which was that from? Kathopanishad, yes. Another text like the Vedic Upanishad in the Brihadaranyaka says, falsehood is embraced on both sides by truth. You have falsehood. On both sides you find that it is embraced by truth. It's not allowed to be infinite, you see. It's an intermediate stage which intervenes between subconscious and the superconscious. The subconscious is the truth, superconscious is the truth. The falsehood is in the middle. Yes. On both sides by truth, it partakes of the nature of the truth itself. A falsehood, distorts and deforms the truth, but truth is there. Even if there is no truth, it couldn't be even falsehood. Here, the universal manifestation is spoken as the Ashwatha tree, the pipala tree that you find. You see, the tree on which you find the red fruits, coming up. This eternal tree, the cosmos is called the Ashwatha tree. That, like a banyan tree, it is a big tree, that. And it is a tree whose roots are above and branches are stretching below. That is a symbol again, you see. Cosmos exists because there is a transcendent, supra-cosmic divine. The world exists because the supporter of the world is above, and therefore the roots are above. It originates above and not below. The tree has its roots above and branches are stretching below. That is this brilliant, pure, that is the Brahman. That is what is called the immortal. The tendency to turn spiritual experience into symbols seems to be most inevitable because that seems to be the only way to concretize these experiences. There is no other go. The Vedic Greek 164:12 is literally repeated in Prashna Upanishad, the Upanishad of questions. There is one Upanishad is called Upanishad of questions. What's the name of it? Prashna Upanishad. It is Prashna, Prashna. There are only questions in it, that's all. It is called Question Upanishad, Upanishad of questions. Sometimes even the original text of the Upanishad runs into Vedic language. Taittiriya Upanishad, for instance, if you take, in which Indra plainly appears as a power and godhead of divine mind. This is the text. He who is the bull of the Vedas, of universal form. Upanishad, this is not Veda, but the language is Vedic, you see. He who was born in the sacred rhythms of the immortal made that Indra satisfy me through my intelligence. O God, may I become the vessel of the immortal. Now, this is Upanishadic text, you see, but the language is almost Vedic. As a kindred passage also may be cited the Isha Upanishad, in which the sun god is invoked as a godhead of knowledge, whose supreme form of effulgence or light is oneness of the spirit, and his rays are dispersed here on the mental light, the body of the self of the sun, the truth of the spirit and the eternal from the mind. From above the rays are spread out, and they come down into the mind, and then the overmind lid of the truth consciousness is so bright that the higher form of the supramental truth is hidden by this light. So this is spoken of in the Upanishad, Isha Upanishad, in the symbol of the sun. The text says the face of the truth is covered with golden lid, with a golden lid. O fostering sun, that uncover for the law of the truth, for sight, so that I may see, have the vision. O fosterer, O soul seer, is addressing the sun, you see. O controlling power, son of the father of creatures, marshal and mask thy rays. Marshal thy rays and mask thy rays. The luster that is thy most blessed form of all, that I see. He who is this Purusha, he am I. This golden shining being that I see, he am I. The kidship indifference of these passages with the imagery and style of the Veda is evident. And the last, indeed, the phrases of the translation into the later and more open style of the Vedic verse of Atri, 5th Mandal, 62, first hymn. This is similar in style and substance and language to the 5th Mandal, 62 hymn, first number. Well, you find it very similar language. Here it is, I just quoted for parallel passage. Hidden by your truth is a truth. A truth is hidden by a truth. Ritena ritam api hitam. A truth is hidden by a truth that is constant forever. That truth is constant. Dhruvam. Dhruvam means constant, permanent. Yes. Where they unyoke the horses of the sun. Now, this is terrible language for modern mind, and that is Vedic language, you see. They unyoke the horses. Here in the Upanishad, he said, the sun's rays are spread, and he is praying to the sun to marshal and mask the rays. The Vedic Rishi says they unyoke their horses. You see, it is what you call in the army language, it is the force is, how is it called? Deployment of the force, you see. The sun's rays are deployed. Now here, horses, there the 10,000 stand together, mass. 10,000 rays of the sun there stand together. That is that one. When the rays are gathered, then you see, oh, it is that one. It is not the rays that are scattered and deployed, but it is when concentrated, you see, it is that one. I have seen the supreme Godhead, a supreme body, supremely beautiful body, I think, yes. Godhead of the beautiful body. In this text, the expression of aspiration of the human soul. Also, in another text, from non-being lead me to being. Upanishad praise, asatoma sadgamaya. This is very famous Upanishadic aspiration. Asatoma sadgamaya, tamasoma jyotirgamaya, mrityorma amritam gamaya. That is how it speaks, you see. From non-being lead me to being. From darkness lead me to light. From death lead me to immortality. Now, this text you find compared to the Vedic, first mandal, 50th, 10. There you find, let's see that we, the Vedic text says, we, seeing the light beyond the realm of darkness, we mount to the Godhead who is higher up beyond the darkness. And among the gods there in the higher, we found the sun, the highest form of the gods. You see, here it says, from darkness lead me to light. The Vedic says, we saw the light beyond the realm of darkness, and we mounted in the realm of the gods and saw beyond this realm of light the highest light, the sun. And we entered into the body of the sun. That's how the Vedic text speaks, you see. The symbolic nature of the sacrifice was very well known to the Upanishad. For the Upanishad says, Aditya is the summit, we have read that. And when you say Aditya, the sun is the wood to be offered into the fire of sacrifice, in the sacrifice there is always smoke. So he says, yes, the rays of the sun are the smoke. What it wants to say is that the cosmic existence is sacrifice. Cosmic existence itself is sacrifice. And the sun is already offered there as a holy wood. And the smoke that you see is the rays of the sun coming out, is the smoke of the sacrifice. The sacrifice is on, they will say. And in that sacrificial fire in which sun is put as wood, holy wood, tasmin deva shraddham juhvati, in that the gods offer faith. You see, the fire is burning, sun is the wood and it's burning, the smoke is the rays, and the gods come there and offer into it faith. Yeah, there we come to some main ideas of the Upanishad, some concepts. Now, I want to give you some easy part of the Upanishad first and then again more difficult parts. See, it is not that all Upanishads are difficult. Upanishads are very simple, as the Vedas are very simple. But people have lost that simplicity of understanding, and so they don't understand the language. But otherwise, the Upanishads are not a difficult language. The experience is difficult. Upanishads are very simple. For instance, they will allow all kinds of questions to be put. Only your questions must be sincere. So, and see, it will say, for instance, in the Upanishad, the student is there because they taught the Brahma Gyan to the youngest people. They didn't reserve it for old people who get absolutely unfit to follow spiritual life very often. You see, by their experience of life, they don't gain much, you see, and they lose the plasticity of young age. They didn't mind teaching from 8 or 9, highest knowledge. They didn't care. They didn't think that young people are unfit for spiritual knowledge. They always thought man was fit if he was ready with questions and with sincere seeking. If it came to young age quite the age to make up for spiritual life. So for the young, what did they do? They didn't give them, difficult propositions. No, they gave them very simple, very simple. And discipline was also, you see, one of the Upanishad I'll quote literally to show you how they dealt with the students. You see, this is regarded as a departing advice to a student when he has finished his studies in the Upanishadic period. 12 years he has been with his master. Now he's going home. Well, what did the teacher tell him? He says, Satyam vada, tell the truth, speak the truth. Dharmam chara, act according to righteousness. Swadhyayan ma pramaditavyam, don't be idle in pursuit of studies. Continue study and meditation. Matrudevo bhava, let your mother be a god to you. Pitrudevo bhava, let your father be the god to you. Acharya devo bhava, let your teacher be the god to you. Then he says, Yani asmakam sucharitani tani sevitavyani no itarani. Whatever are our good deeds, you should follow. Don't follow any other of our deeds. You see? This is literal translation I am giving you from Taittiriya Upanishad. Now this is departing advice given to student. All is not philosophy and hard thinking. Yes, it was hard thinking, but when it came to discipline, there was a discipline. And how did they give knowledge? They knew educational method very well. It was not devoid of educational method in the latest ways. You see, one of the ways I will illustrate to you. He said, first, their idea of qualification for spiritual life. A boy of 8 comes, 8 years boy comes, Satyakam is his name. And he goes to the Guru and says, I want knowledge. Knowledge of what? Brahman. I want infinite, knowledge of the infinite. He says, all right. What is your father's name? And he said, I didn't ask my mother. I'll go and ask. So he went and told that the Guru says that I must, he says that what is my father's name? So what is my father's name? And she said, when I was young, I was meeting many persons and I don't know whose child you are. Upanishadic time, look at the way in which the ethical, you see, the outlook of ethical values. You see, she says, I don't know whose son you are, so I don't know your father's name. So he said, but I want knowledge. So you go, she says, you go and tell him that you are my son. My name is Jabala, and you say, I am Jabal, son of Jabala. Why? Why should you know his father's name? You say, my son. So he went and told that my mother said that she doesn't know my father's name. But her name is Jabal, so I am Satyakam Jabal, son of Jabala. So he said, you are quite fit. You have told the truth, and unless you are really born for higher knowledge, you wouldn't have told the truth. Come along. You see? So there is no caste system and nothing like that, no disqualification. This is a literal translation of a Vedic episode. And then he was asked, and then he said, what do you want to? You want to know? All right, take these 10 cows. Go out into the field. There was, like this range, there was time enough in those days. And I don't know how long that will last. You see, when the population pressure increases, you won't have so many acres left. You know, that time there was enough land. So he said, take these 10 cows and come back when they are 100. That's all. You go. Goes. Then they become 100. He comes back. And he says, yes, what? You got some knowledge? He says, yes. What is the knowledge? He said that all the light bodies that light the earth, the sun and the stars and the moon and the fire and electricity and it is one power that is light, you know. He says, yeah, that's right. You got it right. And you see, and he went on giving his experiences when he was, walking about with the cattle. Well, there. Another time, one man come and says, I want to know the knowledge of Brahman. He said, queries are going on. Bring me a glass of water. He brought a glass of water. He says, have you got a crystal of salt? Yes. He brought salt. Say, will you please put it inside? All right. Then come tomorrow. So he came tomorrow and said, you put yesterday a crystal of salt in this water. He said, yes. Now will you take it out from it? And he says, no, it is not there. But you put it inside, did you not? Yes, I did. Well, now take the water, 1 spoon from the top. How do you find? Oh, it is saltish. Take it from the middle. It is saltish. Take it from the bottom. It is saltish. Now, my dear son, that's how the text runs in the Upanishad. Now, my dear son, as the salt is there, but you do not find it, but still it is there. And like that, the all-pervading, omnipresent reality divine is there. Only don't see it because it is melted, it is everywhere. Oh, he said. Well, that's how you have to try to understand, he says. At another time, another fellow came and he said, I want knowledge. Oh, yes. Have you got a banyan tree? A fruit of a banyan tree? You bring it here. Brought. Oh, this banyan tree. Yes. Will you cut it with a knife? Cut it with a knife. What do you see inside? Oh, I see many small, small seeds inside. All right, take out one seed. Yes, I took out. Please cut it with your knife. Cut it a sharp razor-like knife. So what do you see inside? I see nothing. You don't see anything. But you know that there is a whole banyan tree inside. Do you know that? Yes, I see. So just as you do not see the whole of the banyan tree and still it is inside, like that, my dear boy, sweet boy. Yes. It's a very, very sweet word they use. You see, Saumya, they will say. You see, Saumya is a term of sweet endearment. You see, Saumya is a sweet boy. So, my sweet child, you see, the divine is in you, like a seed, but it is not seen. You see, the experimental method. Another time he will say, all right. Oh, Upanishad is full of terrific things. You say, how the oneness is taking place. He said, you see, just as all the rivers, where do they go? Oh, they go to the ocean. The ocean is one. Well, like that, all activities and all beings and all life rushes into one life. That is the cosmic, omnipotent, divine life, which keeps everybody alive. Because it's that water which is coming back. He will give the instance of a spider in one instance. In one Upanishad, you see the spider? Yes. Now, how does he make his this web? He takes it out from within his own self, is it not? Like that, the infinite omnipresent reality takes out this whole universe from his own being and spreads out the whole web like the cosmos. And then he takes it back if he wants. He can always take it back within his own self. Like the spider who takes back everything again within his own self. You see, so they would have very simple, incidents also like that related in some of the Upanishads. There is a story of of a boy, Nachiketas. You must have heard about him probably. Young boy whose father was performing a sacrifice of, some merit he was wanting to earn. So he was in charity giving cows which are old and, milkless, means unmilking cows, is that are dried up. And so the child felt very badly that why should he give such things? Charity must be the best thing you have got and must not give this kind of, things which you can't use yourself, so you make them say like old horse, as you say. You see. So he didn't want to tell his father that you shouldn't do, but he said, "Well, whom will you give me? You are giving the cows to these Brahmins who are here, but whom will you give me?" Their father didn't care. The whole ceremony was going on, and the priests were working, and so he didn't mind the boy. After 2 or 3 times, when he said, "I give you to God of death, to Yama, go to hell," as you say, you see. So he said, "All right, I'll go." So he went to the god of death and waited there. God of death was not there because his time was not up. See, god of death would be there to receive him if his time was up, but his time was not up. So he went untimely and he was absent. And 3 days he was sitting at his house. When he came back, he said, "Oh, well, I come from earth. My father told me to go to you, so I'm here." Well, he said, "Yes, but you are my guest, therefore, because your time is not up. I can't have you in my charge." So, well, it's not good for me to have treated a guest without any, reception or some sort of, I should have given you some convenience. So, 3 days you have remained without anything. So, you better ask 3 boons to make up for my deficiency and my fault on my part. So he said, all right, 3 boons I will ask. One boon is that my father should not be displeased with me when I go back. And second is I want to know about fire. How can fire lead one to the supreme consciousness? So the god of death gave him the knowledge that if you light the fire and know how to perform the sacrifice of your will to the divine, that will by action will lead you gradually to the higher consciousness. And then he asked, what happens to the man when he dies? Then god of death says, don't ask that question. That is not a question which you should ask. That's a question I don't like to answer. I ask you, give you money, empire, gold, silver, whatever you like, but don't ask what happens to a man when he dies, because that is not a good thing for you to know, and I don't like to explain it like that. He said, no, if you don't, all right. You said 3 boons, I have 3 boons. This is my last boon. If you don't give, I don't ask any other. This is the only thing I want to know. He said, but ask money. He said, you see, man is born like blade of grass. Sasyama pachyate martyaha. You see, like blade of grass, the human being are born and die and again born and die. And one has known that he is ultimately going to die. Who is going to enjoy long life? So you better tell me if you want, otherwise keep your word, otherwise I don't want to ask anything. Then he explains to him what happens to a man after death. You see, God of death explains. Now that is a story of Nachiketas, another young boy. Another Upanishad they would say, if you want to know the ultimate truths, how to know the ultimate truths? He said, you see, if a drum is being played, somebody is sounding a drum. Now, if you study only the sound of the drum, then you simply follow the sound and you don't get at the origin. You go to the drummer. And when you know the drummer and know, you understand the sound of the drum. After that, you are not deceived by the sounding of the drum. So if you see, it is a symbolic way of representing that if you know the infinite, who is the origin of the whole cosmos movement, well, then you know the movement, you see. If you know the being, you will know the becoming. But the way of saying was that you want to know about the drum, everything, well, you know the drummer, then you know the drum. Whatever the drum is doing, you know, because you know the drummer. And one man asked the question, you say that when a man dies, he goes somewhere. Now, is not that place overcrowded by now? He's asking. Upanishad people had a sense, Fundamental questions. He said, you say, you see, there is so much population here and there is so much pressure. Now, how many more have died? Is the majority, is it not? So, is not the place overcrowded? Thereby, there is a funny story. There was in Pondicherry, there was one fellow who predicted that tomorrow the world is going to come to an end. That was some time back also, something happened. So in Pondicherry, somebody brought the news that tomorrow the world is going to end. And we were walking out on the pier there on the sea, and that we were laughing at it and enjoying the joke, more or less. Then we found somebody lying flat on the end of the pier. So asked him why I asked that fellow why he's lying down. So he said that they predict that tomorrow the world is going to end. And then the prediction is that the last day of judgment, then it will be the last day, is it not? And the world ends the day of judgment. Then all the dead will rise. Then he said at that time there will be no place for me to stand, so I secure it now by lying down. When the dead get up, there will be no place to stand. So I take my place now. But with regard to some of the most fundamental questions, the Upanishad has very, very rich treasure of experience to offer in the form of visions, in the form of experience, in the form of intuition, in the form of inspiration, in the form of revelation. Profoundest truth sometimes, you see, as I quoted the Ishopanishads, for instance, the opening verse when we began the discourse here. You see, all this is for habitation by the Lord. Whatever movement you see in the universal movement is for habitation by the Lord. Now, it is not Brahman, not one omnipresent reality, but the Lord is ruler. You see, it is not the conception of an omnipresent reality, only present as a state of consciousness, but as a ruling power. You see, it is all that you see is for habitation by the Lord. You see, all this that I see, literal translation, all this that I see is for habitation by the Lord. Means he created the world as his habitation, you see. Then it says, only by doing actions you must expect or hope to live 100 years. not by renunciation. You see, only by doing action, kurvanneveha karmani jijivishat satam samaha. 100 years if you want to hope to live, you can only hope to live by doing actions. Only by doing actions. And the description of that is, where is that? Tadure, it is far. Tadu antike, it is near. That is far and that is near. Yes. It is within everyone. It is outside everyone. Tadu sarvasyasya bahyatah. Tadantarasya sarvasya tadu sarvasya bahyatah. It is inside everything. It is outside everything. How did he create the world? He says, Sa paryagat. He went abroad. You see? Who? Shukram, pure shining, without body, without wound, without sin, pure, unpierced by evil. He went round. Who? The divine, the poet, Kavi. Poet, as he creates a poem, he is the poet of the world, universe. You see, he created the poem. Yes. Manishi, the thinker. He goes round. He is self-existent. And in his self-existence, he goes round everything and becomes everything. And settles the function of each as to what it shall be from time sempiternal. In the supramental real idea, only he fixes the function of each thing, and course of nature it manifests, you see. That is Vishopanishad. In another, when he asks the creation, he says, yes, so akamayata. Taittiriya Upanishad says, oh, the Lord desired. This desire is the name of the will of the Supreme. But he says, he desired. I am one, let me become many. You see, I am one, let me become many. Ekoham bahusyam. I am one, let me become many. That's how he created those. He says, yes. Sa tapastaptva idam sarvam asrujata. He performed tapasya, ascesis, concentration of his consciousness. And from the concentration, he projected the worlds, into creation. Worlds where creation was projected out of him. He created out of himself by projection of the tapas. And having created, tadev anupravishat, he entered into it. Having created the world, he entered into it. You see, the immanence and this transcendence both at the same time. That is the also description of the infinite, and it says, Satyam Gnanam Anantam Brahma. If you want to know what is infinite, well, you must know it is of the nature of truth. Satyam. Gnanam, it is all knowledge by identity. It is infinity. That is the infinite Brahman. At another place is Raso Vaisaha, all essential delight is He. Kuhivanyat kah pranya daresh akas anandyo nasyat. Who would live? Who would even breathe if this all-pervading delight was not there? It's a literal translation of one text. The universe is an expression of self-existent delight. And he says, who would breathe? Who would live if this all-pervading delight was not there? You see, all-pervading cosmic delight. It also says, Sarvam Khalu Idam Brahma. All this is the infinite. All this that I see is the infinite. I am Atma Brahma. This soul is the Brahman. The soul is the infinite. You see? In another Upanishad, they will ask also about that who is it that sleeps? Psychological conditions also they inquire into. Who is it that sleeps? When the body is asleep, who is it that sees the dream? Kani swapiti. Who is it that sees the dream when the body is not conscious? And then he says, Jagaristhano Bahit Prajnaha. The waking condition is outward turn. And this Sleeping condition is inward turned. And a condition of dreamless sleep is there in which the self of man is without any outward or inner movement. So a psychological study also is envisaged in the Upanishads, you see. There are in the Upanishads many passages which give you idea of evolution, for instance, you see. In one Upanishad, I think Aittara Upanishad, it says like this, that the gods were waiting to find some place to manifest themselves. Then they prepared a body of the cow and brought it. Oh, he said, yes, that is all, but no, not good. That's not proper. Then a horse was brought, body of the horse. You see the physical organism. He said, no, 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 that won't do. Then the body of man, he said, that is well made. We will enter into it. The gods consented to enter into the human body. You see, that is the evolutionary passage. That it was only when the human body was there that any divine possibility takes place. You see, the lower creation is only a rung of the ladder of evolutionary ascent. And there are many, portions of the Upanishad in which they will give conditions for attaining knowledge. Nayam Atma Pravachanena Labhyo. You can't get this knowledge of the self by study, by exposition, by philosophical disquisition, or by reading books on religion and philosophy. It is only by, yes, by practice of attaining identity with the truth that you can attain the higher consciousness. You cannot have it by learning and study. And conditions for attainment, you see, that you must know your soul to be the charioteer and your intelligence to be the driver of your chariot, and body is your chariot and intelligence is your charioteer and mind is your rein. And if you can train and control the senses by your mind, that is rein, and intelligence, which is the charioteer, don't allow the horses to go astray, then this chariot of the body can take you to the right goal, where the soul will find his own kingdom. And the soul, the Atma that is sitting inside the chariot, well, will be led to his fulfillment. Otherwise, he will let the soul to ruin. That's how one of the Upanishads says, you see. Well, I think there are expressions in the Upanishad in which you find a great, outburst of expression which shows that the man must have some experience when he spoke it, you see. He couldn't have held it back. That's why he speaks like that. In one text he says, Vedahametam Purusham Mahantam Aditya Varnam Tamasaparastat. I had known this golden being whose light shines from beyond the darkness. Now there you find that the text is clear that the man must have an experience, otherwise he wouldn't have spoken in the way in which the expression has come to him. Well, that's some of the text of the Upanishad which gives you roughly the depth, the simplicity, and the height of the Upanishad, I think. And we want to take another time perhaps, because we have to take up the Veda one day, if not tomorrow, someday. It deals with various stages and various small stories also of the life of the times of the Upanishad, you see.
Repeat those experiences by reading the Upanishads.
Well, by trying to put your mind into it and trying to practice the meditation.
It's a wonderful experience with our
American Asha Brewster, Earl Brewster, and Asha Brewster, they were living there. Earl Brewster was written the life of D.H. Lawrence. Yes. He came to the ashram and was there for some time, but he couldn't support the climate, so he went and stayed there in the Nainital. But he became so enamored of this Ishopanishad that hundreds of times he wrote a letter to me. Hundreds of times I have read this book. It's a king of a book, he used to say. King book. It is not a book, I said. It is something so tremendous, he said. And when Asha Brewster died, It was Ishopnishad which she said he must read it to her.
Yes.
When she was dying, she said, I want to hear the Ishopnishad last. That was their great devotion to Ishopnishad as a thing that gave them what they wanted. I mean, they were very much devoted to Sharanda and Mother, but out of all the writings, this was very small in volume, but very compact and very
Clear.
Alive in this.
She's right. She's perfectly right. Because Sherundo is here. She's right and she's receiving his light without knowing it. That is her merit. Yes, I know. I am not talking of the air. I know. I know what I say.
The gods come there to the supreme sacrifice of the holy wood burning, the
Yes.
sun,
Hmm.
and offer it unto their faith.
And they offered faith as their offering into it. Yes.
Even the gods
Yes.
for faith.
Yes, they offer faith so that the universe may have faith. You see, this is universal sacrifice. You see, it is creation. You must know that the whole symbol is the creation is a sacrifice of the Supreme. In Veda, there is another verse or hymn in which you see, Yagnena Yagnamaya Janta Devaha. I must give you the text, otherwise you will think I am attacking the air. You see, the gods created sacrifice by sacrifice. So the Supreme Purusha, the Supreme Divine had to sacrifice himself before the world came into existence. It is called Purusha Yagna in the Veda, the sacrifice of the Purusha. It is called Purusha Yagna in the Veda. Rig Veda says of it as the sacrifice of the Purusha. When he sacrificed himself, then the world came into being. And Sri Aurobindo refers to it in the Mother by saying that it was not only Purusha, but sacrifice of the Supreme Mother that was there. The higher consciousness he sacrificed. By Mother he means the dynamic divine consciousness. He gave up his divine consciousness, then the world came into being. You see? That's it. So the world starts with the first sacrifice. Sacrifice in the sense of self-giving. And the self-giving was first done by the Supreme. Then the world is there. Now in the world again sacrifice is necessary for growth. The law of sacrifice is therefore necessary for growth towards the light. And sacrifice is the demand of the divine will that is at work, because the fire that is in the sacrifice is the divine will. The fire that you light is the fire of aspiration. You don't sacrifice unless you have aspiration. You never sacrifice unless you have aspiration. You sacrifice only when something has pulled your aspiration towards fulfillment. The sacrifice is there when there is some aspiration. You see, in fact, the fire is the symbol of aspiration. Man says, I want to be pure. It's a flame. When a man says, I want to control, it's a flame. It's a flame. This is a fire. He says, I want to reach the divine. It's a flame. When a man says, I want the divine knowledge, that is a fire. If he can make it into a fire, if he simply puts it away into shelf and says, I want to know and sleeps over, well, nothing happens. But let him make it a flame. You understand?
That's right.
Yeah, that is sacrifice. That is the fire. In that you have to put everything. When you once light the fire of aspiration in the heart or in the mind, in your emotional being or in the heart, you light the fire of aspiration. Well, then you progress towards the light. That is Vedic sacrifice. That is Vedic yoga. You see, they will say that you must do sacrifice. But it's not the sacrifice, it's the lighting the fire. It's not reading the books that gives you knowledge, it says. Have you lighted the fire? Otherwise, there is nothing. You have not done the right work. If you have not lighted the fire, the whole life is non-Aryan. You are not Aryan. You become Aryan only if you light the fire. And the fire must be there in the altar of the heart or altar of the mind. A flame that burns to truth, to reality, to fulfillment, to divine, to something more than what you are. That is the flame. Flame that awakens in the heart of man is representative of the divine flame, the divine will. It is not man's property, it is not man's creation, it is the divine's gift or the divine guest, as the Veda says. It is the divine guest in man. This fire that makes him feel an aspiration for higher life, that makes him feel that everything is secondary and this is primary. Well, that is fire, and that is the divine guest in man. Atithi Divyaha, they will say. It is the immortal guest in the mortal. Marteshu Amartyaha is, you see, the divine guest in the mortal. It is the immortal guest in the mortals. Fire.
This statement also, action, the sense of action, seconds the function of each in time eternal.
Yes, that is real idea. What we study in the life divine is real idea in the supermind. In the truth consciousness, the divine perceives the self-awareness of his own self like a poet perceiving a poem within his own self. You see, and all their potentiality of that expression is fixed there. When the universe unrolls and manifests, what was there as a real idea comes out here in manifestation. You see, take the sample of a seed becoming a tree. That gives you some rough idea of what this sentence means. That in the seed, the whole idea of the tree is involved. You see, it is there present as potentiality. The real idea of which it speaks, that is, fix the things in seed. Fix the thing as seed. And then everything, when it evolves, only what is in seed will come out. Nothing else can come out. Isn't it?
Yes.
It cannot, it is fixed like that in potentiality. That is a divine wisdom there, which saw the functioning of things in years sempiternal. In knowledge, this can become only this can become only this can become only this. And that was so fixed that it can, when it comes out into manifestation, only that happens.
That's rather colossal.
Yes. Yes. Oh, more than tremendous. It is not more than tremendous, it's more than tremendous. It is something terrific. Yes, yes, it is seen there. And man's business lies in harmonizing with that sight. What he has seen, we must see. Then it's our fulfillment. Otherwise, you go round and round till you see what he sees, what he has seen. Otherwise, you go around and say, oh, I am not happy, oh, there's nothing, but shall I do this or shall I not do this? Shall I think this? Shall I? Oh, that's all right. When you know, oh, now I know, that's all right. That has to happen here. That must come down in my life. I must embody the divine will and his intention. Then the problem of man is solved. He is fulfilled on earth. When he knows that intention, you see,